Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you just didn't know what to do? Anyone? Find yourself like, I honestly don't know what to do here. Anyone? Yeah, some of you. Good. Now, a moment when the stakes felt high and the outcome is quite uncertain and every option seems risky and perhaps even every option seems right. What to do? What are you supposed to do? Now, when faced with life's hard decisions, and I believe most of us have faced with life's hard decisions, we often respond in three ways. The first is we avoid the situation altogether, hoping that it will resolve itself. We just say, if I don't think about it, if I don't do anything about it, it will just resolve itself. So that's the first option. You like that? Is that your go-to? For some of us, perhaps that's your go-to. It's like, let's not worry too much. It'll just go away. So that's the first option. The second one is, this is the gatherer, right? You would gather information as much as you can. You just search for clarity. You just find out everything that you can. So that's the second thing. You don't ignore it, but you just, I can go through this. You find out all that you can. You research. And that's the second option. Or the third option is you just like, I'm just going to go out with my gut feeling. I have peace about this. I'm just going to go and do it, trusting my instinct in that moment. So three options, really. You don't do anything about it. You gather information, or you just do it with your gut feeling. Now, I'm going to say this. What if none of those options actually work? Or none of those options actually the right thing to do? What if the more you know, as you gather information, the less certain you become? Have you felt that way? You think that you didn't know, but after you research, like, now I'm just as confused or even more confused. I wish I didn't even go down that path. I've been there. Now, let me give you some examples of how our lives often face with this kind of difficult situation or circumstances where we have to make decisions. For young people, perhaps when your friends start making questionable choices, your close friend, and you ask yourself, do I'm going to risk our friendship here by telling my friend what he or she is doing is not right? Or I'm just going to keep quiet about it? Or you're dating someone kind and caring, but deep down you say, but does he really love Jesus? Should I keep going in this way? Or should I walk away now? Or you've just been offered a better job somewhere else where you have to leave your family. You ask yourself, do I move or do I stay? If you're parents, you think your child was having a hard time with his friends in school, you ask yourself, do I step in or do I let her handle it herself? What should I do? Or if your daughter is older, you say, my daughter is dating someone, but I'm really concerned about the boyfriend. Do you speak up? Do you tell? Or you just say, well, it's her life. She has to figure it out herself. She got to learn herself. If you're much older, your kids are married and grown up or whatever, you say, then perhaps you have an elderly parent. When you have an elderly parent, perhaps their memory is fading, and you say, now it's really tough for them to live on their own. Do I take them in, or do I put them or find a home for them? Or it is in regards to your own health. You say, do I risk the surgery, or should I just accept it? What should I do? Now, in moments like this, we long for one thing. We long for clarity. And the Bible speaks about that clarity. And the Bible speaks of that clarity in the form of wisdom. Not just more facts. Wisdom is not just more information or better advice, but real wisdom that can actually help us see through complexity of life and live faithfully when the path ahead isn't obvious. That's wisdom. Now, we want wisdom, But we often, especially Christian, treat it like a silver bullet, you see. Something that will solve our problems and give us control. If I just have this wisdom in this situation, then everything's going to be okay. I know what to do. The problem will be fixed. Back in control. But what if wisdom doesn't work that way? And Kohelet tells us it doesn't work that way. What if instead of removing all the mystery of life, wisdom actually helps us live well within it, to accept it, to say it's okay. And for some, that raises deeper question in life. If wisdom cannot guarantee clarity or give us control of our situation, what good is it? I don't want that kind of wisdom. I'd rather have control and clarity and solutions. Why pursue wisdom at all? As the Bible says, pursue wisdom. Seek wisdom. So we say, why? Why bother then? Isn't wisdom then is just a religious guesswork? Like we have educated guess, and we use wisdom as a religious guesswork. Why do I want that? Perhaps you ask. And that is exactly what Ecclesiastes chapter 8 invites us to consider. It is a passage for anyone who wrestle with uncertainty in life, when you face injustice, or perhaps you simply ask, why doesn't life make sense? Why life can be so unfair? So today we're going to explore three things that this chapter teaches us. What is wisdom? Why do we need it? Why do we need wisdom in life? And finally, how to live with wisdom. In other words, how can we live wisely? Okay? So what is wisdom? Verse 1. Who is like the wise, and who knows the interpretation of a thing? A man's wisdom makes his face shine, and the hardness of his face is changed. Now, Kohelet begins chapter 8 with a question. Who knows how to interpret? What does that mean? Well, that word interpret most often in the Bible refer to the skill in understanding dreams, interpreting dreams. Think of Daniel, think of Joseph at the court of Pharaoh. Remember the story of Joseph in the book of Genesis? When Pharaoh had trouble in understanding his dreams, repeated dreams, different but have the same meaning. None of the wise men throughout the land of Egypt could interpret them. But Joseph, by God's help, could. And Pharaoh saw the wisdom of Joseph and put him in charge throughout the land of Egypt. So that is what Kohelet mean when he say, who knows how to interpret? Who has this kind of wisdom like Daniel, like Joseph? So this kind of wisdom that Kohelet is referring to in chapter 8 is not just common sense. Sometimes we think wisdom is just common sense. Or if we have knowledge, we can do this. It's not. It's not just common sense. It's not just education. However, we live in this culture that prizes knowledge, right? More information, more knowledge. We assume that if we just educate people more, if you just know more, give them access to better information, surely they'll make better decisions and live better lives. That's our assumption. If you have better information, you'll make better decisions and you will live a better life. That's our assumption. But does it really work that way? Is what I want to ask. That I want to challenge us. Does more information means we can make better decisions and live a better life? Let me share quickly about this guy. Perhaps you heard of him. His name is Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff is a former chairman of NASDAQ, the stock exchange, NASDAQ. He was educated and respected professionals. He's well off. He's not lacking of knowledge, for sure. But what did he do? He's famous for defrauding investors of $65 billion. This is a guy who's well educated, know what he's doing, have all the information, yet he didn't make the right decision. He didn't make a good decision. He lacked wisdom. Perhaps you know, if you don't know Bernie Madoff, perhaps you know Tiger Woods. He's one of the greatest golfers. Also, he was educated at Stanford. He had success. He had the discipline to be really good at his sport. He had the education, but because he lacked wisdom, at the height of his career, he made a string of destructive decisions in his life, personal choices that ruined his family and damaged his own reputation. You see, wisdom is more than information. Wisdom is more than education. Wisdom is more than intelligence, more than success itself. Wisdom in the Bible is something deeper. It's something that actually changes you. Not something that you possess in your head, but something that changes you. That's wisdom. It says in verse 1, a man's wisdom makes his face shines. That's the second part of verse 1. A man's wisdom makes his face shine. It echoes, what does this remind you of when you read this? It reminds me of Moses. When he came down from Mount Sinai, after he met with the Lord, spent time with the Lord, his face shines. That's how wisdom works. And one commentator explains the face is an index. Our face is an index of the feelings. A bright face is a sign of happiness and contentment. He said a wise person, his face shines. Something happened. It's not just something that he knows, but something happened to him. So wisdom is being in touch with the reality as God made it, that no amount of university degrees can ever give you. So you cannot just say, well, for me to be wiser, I just need more education. I need more degrees. Now, Kohelet suggests that true wisdom is spiritual. It's not physical. True wisdom is a spiritual matter. It doesn't just guide our decision like a fortune telling. Flip a coin and say, should I go A or should I do A or B? Should I go left or right? Should I do this or that? No. It reshapes our disposition. It reshapes our heart. That's what wisdom does. It doesn't just guide our decision. Wisdom doesn't just inform us, it transforms us. Regard to the realities of life. Competence with regard to how life really works. And that's what Ecclesiastes affirms. Wisdom is about navigating how we can navigate life in this complex, unclear, and often unfair world. If you're looking for fair and clear ways of life, well, this is not it. Not in this side of life. This is wisdom in tension, you see. We discern even when we don't fully understand, and we act with wisdom even when we don't have full control of the situation. We discern and we act not knowing fully, not having the full control of the situation. So that's a tension with wisdom. Wisdom doesn't just give us, yep, for sure, that's the right way to do. It doesn't. While it's true that the wise person needs knowledge, of course, he doesn't need every piece of information before he acts. Let me say that again. Wisdom requires knowledge, but it doesn't need everything before he acts. That's wisdom. Wisdom also isn't just about being right or correct. It's about being right in the right way. You can be right in the wrong way, but wisdom is about being right in the right way, and sometimes that may not look good. That might not feel good. Might not even feel comfortable. James, the brother of Jesus, says in James 3, verse 17, but the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. That's wisdom. But here's our problem. We don't want wisdom, if you want to be honest. If I tell you you can have wisdom or you can always have the right answer, what do you want? You say, I want the right answer. I don't want wisdom. I want to be able to know everything. I want to be in control of my life. That's what we want. We don't want wisdom. We want certainty that comes with complete control of our situation. As I said before, that's not wisdom. But we prefer that. We want the power to predict. And we want the power, or we want the guarantee of the outcome. Do you want wisdom, or you want the power to control and the guarantee outcome? We want control. We want guarantee outcome. Do you want the wisdom to raise your kids, or you want the power to control and predict that your kid will turn out to be awesome? We'll take the latter any second day, any day, right? We want guarantee. We want clarity. So what do we do? Because that's our heart posture. What do? We lean on our knowledge. We lean on information. We crowdsource our decisions making. We consult. Who do we consult these days? Well, back in the days, we consult our parents, our friends, our best friends. Today, we consult Google. We consult ChatGPT. Right? They become the source of our wisdom to give us control. When our world seems chaotic, when we are out of control, we want to get back control by gathering information so that we can get back control. That's what we do. We don't seek wisdom, we seek control. But we all have been in situations where we are not in control. You know for sure that I'm not in control of this situation. That I'm out of depth here. I just don't know what to do. Even simple things, when you get 2 job offers and you look at the job offers, both looks good. What do you do? Or if you are parents of a young child and your child's situation keeps you awake at night, what do you do? See, you've done all your research, you've asked all the right questions, you consult Dr. Google and Dr. ChatGPT, and yet you still don't know what to do. What then? Well, that leads us to the second question. Why do we need this wisdom? We need wisdom because the world is cruel, the world is uncertain, the world is unfair, the world is dangerous, and that's what Kohelet is trying to say. So you need wisdom because the world that we live in is like this. It's cruel, it's unfair. It doesn't play by the rules. And those in power who's supposed to care for you and protect you, they don't always act justly. And that's what Kohelet is saying. And he says in verse 2 and 3, therefore, keep the king's command, keep the leader's command, obey them, because God's oath to him. Be not hasty to go from his presence. Do not take your stand in an evil cause, but for he does whatever he pleases. So Kohelet is saying this. The king may not be a good person, but obey him. Here, Kohelet offers practical advice for dealing with the king, or in our case, the rulers of our day, right? Perhaps the prime minister, the law that we live in, or our boss. Kohelet says this basically. In your obedience to the human ruler, be patient. You may not like it, but it's for your own good. And that's wisdom. According to Kohelet, that's wisdom. Be patient. Obey the ruler. Obey the king. Now, that might sound strange to our ears because we've been taught to stand up for your rights, protest, right? If you don't agree, make sure you're loud and clear. Make sure your voice and your opinion is heard. Kohelet gives different advice. Say, be wise. Listen and obey. Be patient. Now, in a world where you don't control the outcomes, I don't control the outcome, you don't control the outcomes, humility before authority often, according to Kohelet, is the wisest path to take. You might not agree with the king, his rules, his laws. You might not understand the reasons. But wisdom is knowing when to act and when to wait. And that's the hardest thing. It's not about whether the ruling is good or bad, the situation is good or bad. It's about who you are, whether wisdom is about who you are and whether you wait or you act. In fact, waiting is a act as well. So let me say that again. Sometimes we think if I got a decision to do or to make, to act means to do something about it. And oftentimes in the Bible, the context of doing something about it, acting about it, is waiting. Because waiting in the Bible Waiting and be patient in the Bible is an act. It's not passive. It's actually an active act of faith. And we don't like that. I haven't met anyone who loves waiting. If you're in the supermarket, if you see 3 lanes, Costco especially, right, on the weekend, not weekdays. Imagine Costco on the weekend, Sunday afternoon, all the checkouts are open, all are full except one. Do you go to the one that has not many people or the one that's full? No one loves to wait. No one go to the waiting at the emergency or at the doctor and say, perfect, I got 2 hours to wait, I can read my book. No one. We hate to wait, but the Bible talks about the wisdom in waiting, because that is an action that we can take. It's an active, it's not a passive action. Waiting, be patient. So we might not agree with the situation, we might not agree with the king, but let's say, obey, be patient. Because wisdom is knowing when to act and when to wait. It's knowing that raw defiance, like just lift your fist and be loud, often brings more trouble than actual transformation or change. Kohelet says in verse 5 and 6, whoever keeps the command will know no evil thing, and the wise heart will know the proper time and the just way. For there is a time and a way for everything, although man's trouble lies heavy on him. Now, when we are tempted to act quickly, to fix our situation immediately, Kohelet cautions us, a wise heart knows the proper time to speak up and the just way to approach a situation. For some of you, this is a difficult thing to do because you know, until I fix this, I will not be able to sleep. I'm that kind of person, right? If I see something is not right, I have to fix it. So I don't even like looking at a clock that has no battery or dead battery. I hate that. I will fix it. Or a light bulb that doesn't work. Let alone real problems in life. Perhaps you are like that too. But Kohelet says there's a proper time to speak up. There's virtue in waiting. Jesus himself used wisdom to get out of dangerous spots. You see, he doesn't always give answers to those who ask him. The Pharisees, especially when they test Jesus, there are times where Jesus said, well, my time is not here yet, and he pulled himself away. He did not answer them. And to his disciple, Jesus says this in Matthew 10:16, behold, I'm sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. Not only he act wisely, Jesus, against the rulers of the day, be patient rather than correcting them, Jesus also gives the same advice to the disciples. He said, I'm sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves, so be wise. So be wise. So why do we need wisdom? According to Jesus, it's because we are, you are, I am, we are sheep. We need to be wise because we are sheep according to Jesus. Not only that we are sheep amongst wolves. Why do sheep among wolves need to be wise? Because there's only one line of defense for sheep, and that is to be wise. You cannot fight back. You cannot fight back. So living wisely is to live competently with regards to the realities of life. Be wise. While living, so the opposite is true. So what is then unwise living? Well, unwise living then is being out of touch with realities. Unwise living, the Bible talks about this a lot, these kind of people a lot, in Proverbs especially. You know what the Bible calls them? Fools. Fools, wise people, the opposite of wise people, wise living, the Bible calls them foolishness. And the Bible has a lot to say about fools. And they're not unintelligent, that's not the issue about fools. It's not about knowledge or lack of, but they are unteachable. There are plenty of them. When I prepare this, I've got a list of them, and then it just gets too long. So I'm going to give you one. Proverbs 1, verse 7. It's going to be long as it is already, so be warned. Proverbs 1, verse 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instructions. It's not that they do not know much. They're just unteachable. They know a lot. Perhaps they're even smart and intelligent, but they are unteachable. So why do we need wisdom? Because we are sheep among wolves. Second reason is because life is often unfair. Because what do I mean by unfair? Life doesn't play by the rule book. If it plays by the rule book, then it's okay. You don't need wisdom. You just check out the rule book, right? When you play board game, my family love board game, you don't need wisdom. You just need to know the rules. That's why don't play, if you want to win anyway, don't play board game with people who owns a board game, who plays a lot, and you never play it. Because you don't know the rule as much as they are, right? They have an unfair advantage. But we need wisdom because life is not fair. It doesn't play by the rule book. Kohelet says in verse 14, there is vanity that takes place on earth, that there are righteous people to whom it happens according to the deeds of the wicked. And there are wicked people to whom it happens according to the deeds of the righteous. I said that this also is vanity. He said life doesn't make sense. The wicked people get the good thing, and the righteous people get the bad things in life. Life is unfair. So we need wisdom because good people suffer and evil people get ahead in life. Kohelet isn't offering us an easy answers here, of course. He's saying this is what life is like. On this side of eternity, this is how life is. It's not fair. It does not make sense. Good people suffer. Wicked people get ahead in life. But we want all of us want fairness, don't we? We teach our kids to be fair. We want to play fair. We all want fairness. But Ecclesiastes, Kohelet, in this book, invite us to something radical. That is how to live wisely and faithfully in this unjust world. The world is unfair, the world is unjust, but how can we live wisely in that world and faithfully? So wisdom, your wisdom, my wisdom, won't fix everything, but it can keep you from falling apart when everything seems broken in your life. Let me say that again. Wisdom won't fix everything, but it can keep you from falling apart when everything seems broken in your life. And that's what you need, and that's what I need. It's not a fix, but this sense that it is okay. God is good. God is faithful. I can trust Him. Even though my circumstances seems like it's falling apart, but He is faithful. Perhaps you don't agree with that and say, well, I don't want that kind of wisdom. And in fact, you say wisdom, it sounds to me like just let's play it safe in this life. Because you say, well, sounds like all you're telling me is just pray and wait and trust God that He's going to deliver. What about taking control? How about being bold and, surely 21st century, with all the AI technology, surely we can take control. We can do better than just pray and wait and trust God. Now, that's a fair pushback, I would say. Because we've been taught that if you want something to change, parents teach their children this as well. Then you say, then you need to do something about it. Then you need to take control of the situation. How many of us as parents teach our kids just when they struggle with things, instead of teaching them, you can do it, you take control, you tell your friends, you tell your teacher, you stand up, instead of saying that, we say, be patient and wait. How many of us teach our kids like that? To be patient, to wait. We don't like that. We don't like to see our children in pain waiting. We love our children when they are so confident and bold in taking control of their life. Right? And that's how we live too. We say, don't overthink it. Just do it. Don't wait. That's why we love Nike. Just do it, right? Well, they make good shoes. But look at what Just Do It does to Tiger Woods. Kohelet isn't obviously advocating being indecisive in life. You wait, as I said before. Waiting is not passive. Waiting is being active. Having faith, strong faith in the Lord. So Kohelet is definitely not advocating indecision. He's not saying don't do anything, don't act. He's saying act wisely. And that acting wisely might look like waiting patiently, trusting faithfully. Wisdom isn't passive, it's measured. It knows when to speak and when to stay silent. It knows when boldness is courage and when it's just the world doesn't seem to make sense to you. See, boldness without wisdom can look impressive for a moment. It's like, wow. But it often brings regret down the track. Now, but even with wisdom, though, life often remains mysterious. It doesn't mean that you just wait patiently, you trust God, everything seems to be okay. No. Life is complex with all its mysteries. So how do we live wisely when we don't have all the answers? After we wait, after we live wisely, life still doesn't make sense to us. So how do we live with wisdom then? So in this world, that's our final point. In this world then, life surely doesn't always make sense. And Kohelet, the teacher, the preacher, observed this in verse 10 and 11, reads, "Then I saw the wicked buried. They used to go in and out of the holy place, were praised in the city, and where they had done such things. This is also vanity, because the sentence against an evil deed is not executed speedily. And the heart of the children of man is fully set to do evil." See, while death is, according to the Kohelet, the teacher, the preacher, is the great equalizer between the wicked and the righteous, whether you are wicked, or you're righteous, you're all gonna die. We're all gonna die. That's kind of the baseline. That's the equalizer. However, Kohelet observed that the wicked prosper in their life, and they were praised in life, and they were honored even in their death. And that's the wicked person. And justice is delayed, prolonged. It seems that it actually pays off to be wicked. Why live righteously and poor and miserable when you can be wicked and praised and honored even in your death? How can we make sense of this kind of mystery? So let's see Kohelet responds in verse 16. "When I apply my heart to know wisdom and to see the business that is done on earth, how neither day nor night do one's eyes see sleep, then I saw all the work of God, that man cannot find out the work that is done under the sun. However much man may toil in seeking, he will not find it out. Even though a wise man claims to know, he cannot find it out." 3 times. Do you see that? 3 times they say, man cannot find out, he will not find it out, he cannot find it out. And he's referring to wise man here. Even with wisdom, he says, you cannot find out, you will not find out, you cannot do it. Even with wisdom. Now, this is not a discouragement, believe it or not. It's actually an encouragement. Because when life doesn't make sense, it may not be your fault. When things don't work out well in your life, in your children's life, perhaps it's not your fault. And some of us need to relieve ourselves from that burden. It's because I stuff up, because I made a mistake, because I didn't do this when they were young, and now look at them, look at my children. Or we regret how we treat certain situation. We say, because I made the wrong decision. So this is actually an encouragement. perhaps it may not because you lack wisdom, because perhaps that's just how the world operates. In fact, Kohelet gave us a number of examples, the limits of wisdom in verse 8. He said, no man has power to retain the spirit or power over the day of death. There is no discharge from war, nor will wickedness deliver those who are given to it. So he's just giving us a series of examples here where he said, like, you can be as wise as you can, but you still have no control over this. Not only do we not know the future, we cannot control the present. Now, the control that you have in the present life, in your life, when you structure your home so under control, right? When you discipline your kids, your teenage boys, to clean their room, it's like so tidy. When you think it is under control, let me tell you, it may not be true. What you see is the tip of the iceberg. You don't know what's underneath that heart of your kids. That hidden underneath the iceberg, underneath the surface. Outwardly, they may be obedient, but how are they underneath, inside, deep down in their heart? Control that you have, that you think you have, and the presence may be just an illusion. Kohelet is telling us, while wisdom is important and we all need wisdom, it has its limit. You can seek wisdom, and you should, and live wisely and still not understand what God is doing in your life, in your children's life, in your spouse's life. As the Puritan John Flavel once wrote, some providences, like Hebrew letters, Hebrew letters write from the backward to English. He said, some providences works like Hebrew letters. They must be read backwards. What it means is this: we may not understand what God is doing after the fact. We can only look back and say, that's what he was doing. Now, this is humbling, and it is meant to be humbling. Godly wisdom doesn't lead us to pride, doesn't make you like, man, this guy is so awesome. He knows everything. He knows what to do in every difficult situations. No, that's not wisdom. That's pride. That's arrogance. That's ChatGPT in telling you. Godly wisdom leads to reverence, awe, fear of God. It leads to humility. It doesn't lead us to be independent person. It leads us to dependent person to God. Wise person don't say, I know what to do. Wise person say, I don't know what to do, but I know the one who does. I don't know what to act now, but I can wait. I can be patient. A wise person is not the one who has figured everything out, but the one who trusts God even when life doesn't seem fair. So how then should we live with wisdom in the midst of life mysteries? We should seek to embrace wisdom all the more, don't we? We should embrace all the more. Accepting the mystery of life is not failure in your faith, but an expression of your faith. When you embrace all this messiness, it's actually an expression of your faith in the one who controls everything, in the sovereign Lord. It's not like, I give up. No. You're actually showing faith in God who is good, who is sovereign. Like Job, he was a righteous man, and he suffered unimaginably. In just a short period of time, he lost all his property, all his children, and even his own health. Not his fault. And yet, in the midst of his pain and all the questions that he had, he could still say in Job 13, verse 15, though he slay me, though the Lord slay me, yet I will hope in him. That is wisdom. It's easy to say that when things make sense in your life, when you get the promotion, not redundancy, when God gives you a child, when give you new home. It's easy. You don't need wisdom. But wisdom is when you don't know. Job didn't know what is going on. All he knows is, all he sees is all these miseries in his life. And yet he say, yet I will hope in him. Now, Job's words should remind us of Jesus' words as well, and Jesus' life. the truly righteous sufferer who, in Gethsemane, prayed, "Not my will, but yours be done." At the cross, he entrusted himself to the Father, embracing misery and injustice for your sake and my sake. Perhaps the misery that you're experiencing, the suffering that you're experiencing, is for the sake of the people around you, perhaps your spouse, perhaps your family. And again, in John 5 will say, it may not make sense right now, but God's providence often works like the Hebrew letters. You can only look backward and say, aha. So when life doesn't make sense, we actually don't just follow Job's faith, but we actually follow Christ's path, our Lord Jesus' path. When we embrace wisdom and all its limitations, in the midst of our suffering, we can still enjoy life. Kohelet says in verse 15, "And I command joy, for man has nothing better under the sun but to eat, drink, and be joyful, for this will go with him in his toil through the days of his life that God has given him under the sun." Now, this is not hedonistic living, but rather a life that understands the enjoyment of life is actually a gift from God. If you can enjoy in the midst of chaos, right? Have you visited a friend or you know someone, or perhaps this is you. You come home, it was so chaotic because you got young children in your home, or you got lots of pets. It was so chaotic, right? Yet you can still grab a bowl of meal, switch on the TV, and just enjoy like nothing happened. That's a picture of wise living. Because deep down you know, in the midst of all this chaos, it's going to be okay. Because you know who is in control. You don't need everything else to be tidy, to be rightly ordered before you can have peace. You can have peace right in the middle of your suffering, in the middle of your mess, because you know He is faithful. He is good. Now, wisdom is liberating in this way because you can stop finally trying to control and master your situation, present situation and future as well. You can stop demanding fairness now, knowing that in the end it will be well with those who fear the Lord, according to Kohelet, verse 12. In the end it will be well for those who fear the Lord. But this is hard for us because we think peace comes from understanding. Peace comes from order. Peace comes from control. We think joy comes after everything makes sense to us. We cannot have peace when we don't understand. A lot of us feels that way. We can't sleep because it doesn't make sense to us. But Kohelet teaches us, even when things doesn't make sense, we can have joy because that's a gift from God. The Gospels say peace doesn't come from having all the answers. It comes from knowing the one who has the answers. That joy isn't just when life is good and resolved. Rather, it's a gift from God in the midst of unresolved and messiness of life. And God says in Isaiah 55, verse 8 to 9, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts are your thoughts." That verses brings comfort to me more than I could have imagined. When things doesn't make sense, when I don't want to do things, when I don't want to experience this or that, God reminded me that His ways are higher than mine, that He is good. Kohelet observed life, but he couldn't understand all its mysteries. Kohelet thought that death is the end, both for the wicked and the righteous. That's what Kohelet believed. Thankfully, we have someone greater than Kohelet, one who not only possesses wisdom, but is the very wisdom of God. Jesus, the Bible says, is the wisdom of God in flesh. He didn't just teach wisdom, He lived it. He is wisdom of God. He conquered death, so that death is not the end, but the beginning of real life for you and I. So we're not truly living yet. He stood before unjust authorities, and He did not lash out. He did not say, "You were wrong." He trusted the Father even when the plan made no sense. He walked into the cross, the ultimate injustice, and was silent before the accusers. He didn't feel like he has to make people understand that he's innocent. At the cross, Jesus showed us the one who knew everything submitted to the mystery of suffering. The one with all the power chose the weakness of the cross. The one who was perfectly wise died for fools like you and I. Why? So that by faith in him we might become truly wise. I'm going to close with a quote from William Carey, the father of modern missions, who spent 40 years in India translating the Bible into more than 30 languages. He was once said about what made him so successful, and he said, I can plot, I can persevere in any definite pursuit. To this I owe everything. His secret sauce, he said, I can take a step. I can take a step. That's his secret sauce. Well, we often want to know everything before taking a step, waiting for all the stars to be aligned. Perhaps today what you need is simply to take one step at a time, trusting in the mystery of God's way in your life. Let us pray. Father, we confess that we often lean on our own understanding. We want control, we want certainty. But teach us to walk in wisdom. Not the world's wisdom, but the wisdom that fears you and trusts you and follows your Son. And help us live faithfully in a world that is often unfair, unjust, and give us the peace that comes not from having all the answers, but from knowing that you do. Through Jesus Christ, our wisdom and our Redeemer, we pray. Amen.